And welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today, we're going to be talking to Mitch Russo, who at the age of 16 was the lead guitar player for his high school rock band. Besides being the best way ever to meet girls, it taught him how to build and run and promote a business. His band, Absolutely Free, was the highest paid high school rock band in his high school district, making over $500 a night, and that was in 1970. Later, Mitch started a software company in his garage, sold it for 8 figures, and then went on to work directly with Tony Robbins, building a business together. Mitch also wrote a book called The Invisible Organization, How Ingenious CEOs Are Creating Thriving Virtual Companies, and he's here with us today. So Mitch, welcome to the program today.
Thanks, Jamie. Great to be here.
So let me ask you this. Would you still rather be in the rock band today?
Absolutely. You kidding me?
That was my first dream, too, as a kid. At least you got to do it. I couldn't sing. 2, I couldn't learn how to play any instruments. So I'm just a fan. So that's all I could ever be. But if I could do it, I would definitely be in a rock band. So it looks like you had a great experience with that.
I certainly did. And the only problem I had with being in a rock band was, like you, Jamie, I truly had no talent.
So what did you do? What was your role? What did you play or did you sing?
Well, I was lead guitar player,
Okay.
and I was able to copy other people's music to some degree, but I didn't have an original song in my entire body. So there was no way I could have ever succeeded. And I was lucky to have realized that before I tried to launch my career as a rock and roll star.
Well, it looks like things worked out for you regardless, and you had a
Yeah.
great experience, when you were younger there in the rock band. Are you still a fan of rock today?
Absolutely. It's my favorite music.
Absolutely, mine too. I'm a big Metallica fan. Who's your favorite?
Oh my goodness. Everything from the Beatles to Jimi Hendrix to Cream, up through Metallica and even to Green Day.
Now, we could share a whole discussion on that, but today we're going to focus, though, on your organization where you serve as a master strategist, helping companies build their brand and identify new revenue streams. So first off, just tell us about your brand as it is today.
Sure. So I started really working individually with people and then with companies after I ended my time with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes at Business Breakthroughs. Once I wrote the book was a great introduction to what I do. And since then, I've been working individually with clients and helping other companies build divisions and working with very special transformational leaders to turn them into worldwide names.
Now, when you began working with Tony Robbins, I guess this was before he was a household name. You built a business together. What was he like working with then?
Well, he was a household name when I started.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And what was he like working with?
Yeah.
He was a tough boss, if you will, in the sense that, not to me, but he was very, very determined to make things successful, and he was very critical of his own success. He was always trying to make his success and make his people do a better and better job. And he did that through coaching, and he did that through participation. So honestly, it was great working with Tony.
And today, you still stay in touch with Tony, still friends?
Absolutely. In fact, I still do work for Tony from time to time.
Very cool. His son, Jarek, lives locally here in Tampa. I've had the opportunity to meet him a few times. And interestingly enough, Tony does not allow his son, Jarek, to in any way piggyback off of his brand. Whenever he does his own speaking, he can't say son of Tony Robbins, and neither can the promoters, too. He really wants Jarek to have his own success. So I can see how he is a tough boss.
He is. And again, he is very, very strict about his brand. His brand is his most valuable asset, and he guards it very, very carefully. And I don't blame him for one bit.
So talk to us about that first business and how you went on to develop other businesses and help business owners today.
Sure. Well, the first business that I developed and successfully sold was Time Slips Corporation. And it literally started in my garage or above my garage with my next door neighbor. And together what we did is we found a problem that needed a solution. And we worked on it nights and weekends, and we wrote the manual, and he wrote the software, and we built the infrastructure to run this tiny little new company. And we were all ready to go, and we quit our jobs, and there we were on day one, and we received some pretty bad news. The news we received was that the reason for us being in business was completely obliterated by the IRS.
Oh, no.
So at that moment in time, we had a product, we had a manual, we had a package, we have everything, but we had no value to anybody.
What happened?
So
Was there a rule change? I didn't quite
There
get
was.
that. What was the
Yeah.
change? What was the solution that you had what was the problem you had the solution to, and what was the change?
So we had the original idea to help business people keep track of their computer usage so they could deduct their computer as a business expense from their tax returns.
Interesting. And so I guess you no longer have to track your computer use, right? I've never had to track my computer use. At least if I am supposed to. Nobody told me that.
Exactly. Well, the IRS relaxed that ruling on contemporaneous record keeping, and at that moment in time, we were pretty much out of business.
And so what did you do from there? Were you able to salvage any of that business and what you had put into it and parlay it into another idea?
Well, I'm sure you heard the story of Napoleon. I'm sorry, it wasn't Napoleon. It was a famous explorer who brought his troops to the island and told them to burn the boats.
Right.
Well, it turns out that we had burned the boats. We had both quit our jobs. And so we had nothing to go back to. So with that mentality, we brainstormed and brainstormed. I mean, I threw a lamp across the room at first. I was so mad, but as it turned out, we figured out a way to repurpose a good portion of this incredible technology that we had uncovered and built. So that became a time and billing system for lawyers. So time tracking was great, but now that you assign it to clients, you can keep track of your time you work for clients, and that became time slips.
Oh, okay. And I take it, what became of the business? Obviously, that's still in demand today. You said you sold that business?
I did. I grew the business. My partner and I, we grew the business. We had over 100 people at one point working for us. We achieved over 250,000 customers, and we were bought out by Sage PLC out of the UK.
Wow, incredible story right there, all centering around just how to track your time. It's something that's really never going to go out of style. You got to track your time, whether it's in work or in other aspects. I can see a lot of different sources of how you would use that technology. So then after that, were you ready to retire, or what? You just one of those people that just can't retire?
I was way too young to retire. My daughter had just been born. She was 4 years old when we finally moved back to New England. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do? So I had this idea. I said, you know what? I'll get a job. I'll go work for a venture capital company to help them with their portfolio companies. And I sent my resume out to probably 24 venture capital companies, and nobody would even call me back. Finally, I started calling them and saying, what the heck's going on? I mean, I'm your perfect candidate. I just built a company from scratch. I grew it to 100 people. I sold it. I bought other companies and merged them into mine. What's the problem? I finally figured out that after speaking to one or two people, the real reason I was unhireable was because I was too old at the age of 44.
Too old. I guess that's what do you got to be up to, like 29 or something, and then that's what I guess what they think that requires just a lot of go and energy or something.
Back then that was the trend with internet startups. Everything was 20-year-olds, and so here I came along, and I, even though didn't have much gray hair, I had a little bit of experience, and still I couldn't get a job. So instead, what I decided to do was I decided to start attending these angel investing meetings where I would meet young companies, and I eventually invested in many of them and offered to help them. And so I created a venture fund called Assist Ventures, which is no longer in existence, to help small companies get started and get funded. And as I was doing that, another venture capital firm came along and said, hey, we'd love for you to help us with our venture companies. And we did. And so I ended up becoming the CEO of FurnitureFan.com, which became the largest furniture shopping website on the web.
Wow, incredible. And so at the age of 44, multiple businesses. Did you sell that one too, or where are you at today in business?
Yeah, we sold that business. And then I became fascinated with options and became a professional options trader.
Oh, wow. That's a whole other area right there.
I know. And then I just follow my interests, So for me, it turns out that I'm fascinated by life, and I love trying and learning and becoming great at something new. So after that is when my buddy Chet Holmes gave me a call and said, hey, help me in my company. And then we began to have weekly discussions with Tony Robbins about how to put this new business together.
Interesting. And so have you figured out the options market, or are you still just dabbling in that?
Quick story about that. I had learned how to trade options. I had hired a mentor from the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, and I was doing really, really well in the options market until the great crash of 2008 came along.
Oh yeah,
And
didn't make any money then, huh?
well, no. Luckily, though, I preserved my original principal, but wiped out my profits for the year and increased my blood pressure medication significantly. And I said, I'm done.
That's tricky stuff. I've never dabbled in it, but I do have a finance degree, and I had to write many financial models to explain how that stuff works. But I would never throw my own dime at it. I just don't trust, don't trust those models. I guess the way academia teaches us and everything. So,
Sure.
But nonetheless, a great career here, multiple different business categories, buying and selling them, all starting with an initial failure that you didn't let that just back you up into a corner, that you really pushed your way out of. And today, multiple businesses are being built and being sold, and today helping mentor others. And you've really gotten a sense of what it takes for entrepreneurs to succeed and what really holds them back. I want to get into that here in the second part of the show. So when we come back from the break, I'm going to talk with Mitch about what stops most entrepreneurs from really breaking through and becoming successful, and how he helps you as a business owner develop your different revenue streams and your brand. So again, currently talking to Mitch Russo. He is a master strategist and brand builder. Learn more at mitchrusso.com. Currently listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. And welcome back to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. New episodes each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com, and also find us on iTunes and on YouTube. Today, we're talking with master strategist Mitch Russo. Learn more at mitchrusso.com. He's built up several different brands and sold them, and so he knows what it takes to build and to develop business and get them from inception all the way up through the exit strategy, which so many business owners really lack, is that exit strategy. But Mitch, I want to go on to what stops most entrepreneurs from really breaking through and becoming a success?
My belief is that it's the mindset. The mindset of entrepreneurs are people who want to succeed, but things hold them back. Fears hold them back. Their reluctance to take risk holds them back. And once we push through that, and I work with clients on that all the time, once we push through that, then it's amazing what people can accomplish. Remember, everything starts with a thought.
Right.
So if you start with the thought of failure, then you're going to fail. But instead, replace that with the thought of success. And it's not just as simple as, I'm going to think I'm successful. Boom, I'm done. No, it comes down to training your mind to reject those negative thoughts and focus only on what you are going to do today to further your process to become successful.
A lot of people go into business because they are good at something. They've been doing that job for somebody else, and they think, I can do this for myself. And so there's a lot of people who get into the world of entrepreneurship, but they're really just building their own job, and they don't really know how to structure the business. Do you come across this as a challenge when you're working with people that they just want to continue doing their job and not really knowing how to develop and build the business?
Yeah, because remember, the paradigm is completely different. I mean, you show up and you get a paycheck, and you don't have to do anything but what you are theoretically good at that job. So when you then go out on your own, all of a sudden it could be confusing. Like, now what do I do? I mean, how do I get a paycheck again? And realistically, that doesn't come. Now you have to go out and you have to start doing all the things the rest of that business did in order to pay you. So you got to sell, you got to market, you got to be able to deliver your product. You have to be able to stand behind it, guarantee it, upsell them to the next level, whatever that may be, and provide all of the customer service necessary to make sure that your client is successful with what they just purchased. So I
think a lot of business owners also lack exit strategy. It's something I don't think many of them think about, especially the first timers. They don't. The pros do, but the first timers, they don't have any plans of ever getting out of it. They kind of get stuck in it. How do you help people develop a plan of actually exiting their business?
Well, again, that's individual, and I work with entrepreneurs who've built successful businesses on designing and developing an exit strategy, but really it's more of not just an exit strategy, but it's more of a sales pitch for someone else to buy their business. Because remember, your business is actually the product. And when someone comes along, they see your business as potentially desirable based on some key factors. And it's those key factors, if in place, will make someone want to buy your business.
How do you advise business owners when you're working with them from the word go in terms of building the brand? Because my brands are centered around me. I can't pick up and move somebody else into my seat. And so that's a weakness that a lot of business owners have, including myself. If you're working with somebody from the beginning, how do you coach them on building a brand where they can step outside of and move somebody else in and nobody would skip a beat?
Sure. Well, please understand that some people need to be themselves as the brand. So if you're a service provider, or if you're a surgeon, or if you're a medical officer, a dentist, it's you that really people are connecting with. So your brand is you, and you should build your brand and stay focused entirely on what you do and making sure that people understand the one thing you do that is the best more than anybody else. However, if you have a product, it's usually better to stay focused on the product and then build the company around that.
You know, I see a lot of service providers who come out with a certain, moniker, a certain way of presenting themselves or their ideas, and then they start to productize, and that seems to be secondary. And those are the ones I see start to build a brand that is sellable. How would you advise?
Well, once again, if you look at what we've done in the past, I mean, Chet and Tony built Business Breakthroughs with me. So the three of us building Business Breakthroughs International had a product, which was the business, which we could then sell, which we intended to do, but yet the business was still focused on the three of us. So my perspective is that I really see making sure that when you set your business up, you understand that it's likely at some point in the future you're going to want to sell it. So focus on that aspect of how you market, create, and position the business.
So were you born an entrepreneur? Did you ever work the 9 to 5 and then just step into the world of entrepreneurism with that first business? I mean, you're playing in a rock band and then, you're building a business. Did you ever experience life in corporate?
I did, actually. It turns out that, I was raised by entrepreneurs. My dad opened up a series of candy stores all over New York City. And I used to go with him every day to the stores to check them out and sneak some candy into my pockets, of course. But ultimately, when I look back at my life, I don't think of it as something I had to learn. I think of it as something that came quite natural to me. So it was the process of growing up and learning that I'd rather have profits than a salary. But when I sold my company, I had to work for a corporation, and I hated it.
How long did you last there?
Well, I was only supposed to stay 2 years, but they offered me the role of chief operating officer of the whole U.S. organization. And I figured, hey, that would be a good opportunity. Let me try that. And I could only stand it for another 2 years until eventually I had to go.
So what is it? Entrepreneurs, they don't crave stability. Stability scares them. They like the unknown, and the people that work the 9 to 5s crave the stability. What was it about the corporate job that just drove you up a wall?
Well, first of all, I'll tell you a quick story. We had a software program, and that software program, like any software program, every year or so had an upgrade. And if that upgrade had bugs, it would destroy our clients. I mean, it would send them into a tizzy.
Right.
So what ended up happening is that in this one case, we were ready to get released the new upgrade, and I went to the board and said, "Yeah, the upgrade is going to be late. Sorry." And they said, "No, it can't be late." I said, "What do you mean? It's not ready. There's still bugs in the software."
Right.
And they said, no. We have counted on the profit from that upgrade release, so you're releasing the upgrade no matter what. And I said, "Nope, I'm not." And that was the beginning of me leaving. And they said, "Well, we're going to release it anyway, so we're just letting you know it's going out." And I said to them, "If you release it, you're going to end up with a class action lawsuit on your hands."
And I guess they did?
And they did.
I think that's the mindset of a lot of software providers. Just throw it out there and let the community tell us all the problems, and we'll fix them as they go. Like every time an operating system comes out, I'm always hesitant to download those first initial versions because I know there's going to be something that doesn't work.
Absolutely. But you got to remember, we were dealing with accounting software for lawyers.
No.
So we're screwing with their money. Do you think they're not going to notice?
Yeah, if you're dealing with any type of software with lawyers, yeah, you'd have to be doubly careful for certain versus just the general public for sure. So interesting story, and definitely proves your worth to a company. In 2015, you wrote a book. Tell us about your book.
Sure. So what happened was that, for many people know this, but Chet and I had been friends for decades, and he asked me to help, and we met with Tony Robbins. Chet and I built Business Breakthroughs. But about 3.5, 4 years into the process, Chet got sick, and he got leukemia, and he spent the next year focusing on his health and fighting leukemia with all his strength. And a valiant job he did, but he ended up passing away. And that left me in a very unusual place, a place I had never thought I would be. And so at the end of the process, after he had passed away, I found that it was going to be best for me and probably best for the company if I just move on, because I lost a dear friend. I had lost what I thought of was my best friend in life and my partner in this business. And I just needed to get some space and take a break. So I resigned from the company, and Tony and I worked it out. And I went on to speak to a buddy of mine named Jay Abraham. And I said, Jay, what do I do with everything? I mean, what do I do with my life? And he said, Mitch, whatever you decide to do, don't let what you know go to waste. And I said, well, what does that mean, Jay? He goes, I don't know, but you can't let it go to waste. So after a few days of thinking about that, I said, well, I should write a book. And that's how the Invisible Organization came about.
And where is the book available, and who is that book written for?
It's written for people who want to run a virtual company or take a company that's not virtual and convert it to being more virtual.
Very good. And where can people pick it up?
Amazon.com.
And we'll, of course, get that link up in the show notes as well after the program. Mitch Russo, master strategist and builder of multiple brands. Good discussion. Reach out to him, mitchrusso.com, where he can help you turn your hidden assets into a rich, recurring revenue stream and discover 4 new revenue streams you never had, and increase continuity profits and create extraordinary value for your company and your family. Mitch, any closing thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I just want to say that I think entrepreneurism is the foundation of American growth. And I want to encourage everybody to stay in the game. You can't win if you're not in the game.
Good closing thought. Mitch Russo, thank you so much for being with me on the program today.
My pleasure.
Learn more at mitchrusso.com. Learn more about this program and catch new episodes each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time at thatbusinessnetwork.com. And please find us on iTunes and on YouTube and subscribe to help the show grow and to help our guests' messages to get out to more and more of the community. So again, you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.